All right. Peace, everybody. It's the guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for another edition of Business with Benefits. I had a whole hype intro and I uploaded the wrong video with the wrong music, so I had to change it up real quick. But thank you guys for tuning in. To my right, you will see the amazing MTW, otherwise known as Michelle Taylor Willis. How you doing, Michelle?
Hey, Daryl. How's it going?
Good. I got to fire my producer for mixing the sound up on that, but otherwise we're good. And I mean me when I say that.
Listen, if you had never said anything, we'd be none the wiser.
I'm critical of myself, but I want to say thank you to hashtag Team Live, hashtag Team Replay. However you consume the content, we appreciate it. Please let us know below. And Michelle, this is your second time coming on Business with Benefits solo, and we met through LinkedIn, through comments and whatnot. But I know who you are, but for the people that don't know who you are, let them know your gift for the world.
Wow, my gift to the world. How much time do we have exactly? So I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Michelle Taylor Willis, and my tagline is I empower people to empower people. I own and founded basically a media company here in Atlanta called Ganyo Media, and we find affordable ways for small businesses to advertise. We do that through print, TV, radio, and billboards. And so the problem is for small businesses is that we want to advertise, but sometimes we don't have the budget, we don't know how to do it. And so we solve that problem because, we create our own content. We own really most of our mediums, so we can control what actually happens. We can control how much we charge, but we really can sculpt packages specifically for small businesses. So that's one of the ways I empower people. I also own a small boutique speaking firm called MTW Enterprises. And I do things like this. I go around I used to go around everywhere before COVID.
Right.
But before COVID, I'm not doing much of that anymore. But I do virtually go around and speak to groups. I talk about visioning, business planning, parenting, mindset, and sales a lot, especially in this COVID environment. Really talk to entrepreneurs about selling and the importance of it. And so that's it. I'm a mom of 4 boys. I'm married. I sit on several boards here in Atlanta and lead a few of them. And so, empowerment is my game.
Yeah, and it's the very important topic today, empowering parents. But I want to let people know, if you're watching this, you're a business owner, reach out to Michelle. She might be able to help you advertising your business, because everybody needs exposure as part of the sales funnel. And speaking of exposure and awareness, I want to catch up with some comments. We had Kathleen representing from Florida. She said kids. That's all I'm going to say. So we're going to have to talk about kids.
You're right, Catherine. You're right.
Marlon saying, what up, peeps? Representing from Jersey. Hey, Marlon.
Hey, Marlon.
And then we have Jamal Osbury saying hello. Thanks for jumping in, Jamal.
Hey, Jamal. Hey, Jamal. Jamal. I know a guy. He's from New York, and he was like, Jamal. That's how we have to
put a little extra accent on it.
Yeah.
But you made some rounds with a recent book you put out, Raising Significance. Has been spread pretty widely, and it's been on the Tamron Hall show as one of the best places been seen. So Raising Significance, we're all dealing with COVID-19 right now with kids at home. And I jokingly said in the post of this, if you want to choke your kids, come here to watch this, because it's different raising kids in a pandemic. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-month-old and a 12 and 10-year-old. So you also, you're a boy mom, but you understand that it's different when they can get outside and go do things and all that. So what is Raising Significance for people that haven't read the book yet?
Yeah, so Raising Significance is basically intentional parenting, right? That's being very intentional and deliberate and strategic even about what you train your kids to do, how you train them, what you expose them to, so that they will intentionally end up being not just contributing members of society, but game changers. And that's the first part of the book. I asked people, like, are you trying to raise contributing members of society, or do you want to raise kids that you are positioning to change the world. And so, you know how, because Daryl, I mean, think about how many times, like you talk to people, they have older kids or, or they have kids in high school and they're like, man, I'm just trying to keep them out of jail and make sure they don't knock somebody up and make sure they don't end up, you know what I mean? It's just like, and like, I know that they're joking, but I mean, a lot of people are like, listen, I'm just trying to keep them alive until they're 18 and then, I'm done with them. So my thing is like, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to be intentional about making sure that our children have the capacity, the wherewithal, the drive, the resources to change the game.
So where do you think that came from you? Was it pretty much like not wanting to be the status quo, but I just want to keep them alive, or was it something your parents did with you?
Oh, it was absolutely my mom was a very intentional mom. I grew up as in a single family household, right? And it was my mom and my three sisters. And my mom was very intentional about how she raised us. I mean, I've got stories upon stories. I mean, it was like my house was like hell house. Like nobody wanted to come to my house to hang out because they're like, not Michelle's mom. I mean, it was like, from what we ate, my mom was feeding us tofu 40 years ago, right? When when tofu was like $30 for a block, right?
Right.
We were eating that. I mean, my mom was feeding us like no sugar, no pork, no white anything. Like the only thing that can come up in our house that was white thing that could come up in our house that was white was like somebody white, and they were close to not being able to.
Right.
But I mean, it was like every single thing that she did with us was so intentional, from the food we ate to the people with whom we consorted, to the after school activities that we were allowed to do, to the things we watched on TV. I mean, little did she know when she was not at home, Cinemax After Dark was a thing. So I'm just gonna say that. But you remember Cinemax After Dark, right, Daryl?
It was a scramble channel. My parents didn't have the package, so it was a scramble channel.
Oh, got it.
You wait and see, like, what was that? What was that?
Remember the cable boxes where you have to go like this with the like zerp, zerp, zerp? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you're old
I'm old enough for that. Yes, I'm old enough for that.
But yeah, so she was very intentional, and so it rolls down. You know what I mean?
So do you think since COVID, I mean, you've already had a process kind of set up, but either yourself personally or the people you work with, have you seen their parenting change when COVID kind of happened? Like, do you think their parenting style change or yours change at all?
No, not at all. And so that's one of the, I'm going to say no. I mean, there might be a small, it's a major change with COVID, right? So there might be small tweaks here or there, but really, I'm going to say no, and here's why. Because if you are intentionally raising your kids a certain way, it doesn't matter what happens outside of the house. It doesn't matter that there's a pandemic. It doesn't matter that they're in school in the house now, so people out of the house. Like, none of that matters, holistically speaking, because you're still going to obey immediately and happily. You're still going to be respectful. You're still going to have to do, nothing really changes, right? But it's all training. When kids are trained to do certain things, it's a mindset that you're training them on as well. So it's hard to throw that mindset off when they've been trained in that mindset. And let me just say, I put this in the book. I talk about this when I talk to people. I'm not a perfect parent. My kids aren't perfect kids, Daryl. I mean, somebody got in trouble yesterday for lying about brushing their teeth. I mean, it's just like,
right.
I mean, they're still kids, I'm not a child expert. I don't have a psychology degree in child rearing. Like, there's none of that, right?
Okay.
I'm a mom who's raised 4 boys. One of them's 22. So 2 thumbs up for one. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
And so and I've just seen these things work in my house. I've seen them work with people that I've shifted this information to. And I saw it work in us, from my mom down to us. You know what I mean?
How many of your friends have you heard those saying, like, I give up, or it's totally different, or I can't get them? Like, basically, like, people kind of see the work the teacher did, I think, now. And they're like, oh, I got to do the discipline at home too, and the teaching and all that. So how many of your friends kind of reached out to you like, Michelle, how did you get them like this?
Oh, I mean, especially when when we first went into quarantine, what was that, like March? Almost a year ago. My phone and my my text were like, we're going off the hook. They were like, what are you doing with your kids? How are you making them do this? How are you making them do that? What are they, And that was one of the reasons I was like, let me go ahead and get this book out. Because I'm like, and then I'm listening to people like on Instagram, right? I'm watching Instagram, I'm seeing TikTok, and I'm seeing these people that are like, I'm about to kill my kid. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. First of all, we can all agree now that there was a point where people were like, okay, my kids are just as bad as the teacher says they are. Because I'm witnessing it now, right?
Yeah.
So I think there was this awakening that happened. But yeah, I was getting all kinds of, texts and questions. And that was really, like I said, that was the reason why I pushed the book out. That was the e-version at that time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, people could really use this information.
Yeah, it's been helpful because I think there's parenting books out there, but you actually done it, and it's not like from an academic standpoint. And as a Black mother, there's not a lot of voices talking about that, and the boy mom of all things be a mom of all boys. So there's a different side to the Black side. Obviously, we're probably a little more disciplined. For people watching this that aren't melanated, it's usually the common thing to say that Black families are more, they're more undisciplined than the Caucasian families or the Asian or different families. So would you say that has kind of been the parting wisdom that a lot of people kind of pull from that, as having a kind of discipline is kind of the crux of it, or is it something different?
Let me make sure I understand your question. Like, having kind discipline is the crux of
your process, because sometimes people are like, I think about my dad was like all discipline. It wasn't compassionate all the time.
No, I'm a disciplinarian, I think, and we ask our kids this sometimes. We eat dinner together most nights as a family, and we do this thing called highs and lows, where everybody has to go around the table, and you have to say your high of the day and then your low of the day. And so sometimes in that we'll ask questions. So we ask the question often, like, who's the mean parent? Who's the nice parent? Who's the disciplinarian? And like, they're like, mom is, mom is, she puts the hammer down.
She's the business.
I am. Yeah. And I'm the tough love, kind of parent. My kids know that I love them. They know that when they are disciplined, it's because of, it's for them. And our job as parents is to raise our kids so that the world, like, we have to break the news to them that the world does not love them. Like, we love them, right? And, we don't want them to get out there and for the world to break it to them that they are not the center of everything. And that's what happens. I mean, we have parents who parent in this kind parenting. I'm not saying you shouldn't be a kind parent, but in this, like, and I'm not
everything's
saying
happy.
that works for people, then absolutely that works for them. But I know that there's an element of this, you need to have some type of sternness and strictness, because people need to have kids need to have healthy fears of their parents. If they don't, then they'll do whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah. You see it in the grocery store all the time when the kids wilding out and not listening. Like, you think nothing's gonna happen to you?
Man, let me tell you something. My kids even will see kids acting. I remember when my kids were young, like 3, 4, 5, and kids would be screaming and like, it was crazy. And they're like, no. And my kids would be like, Mommy, like, something's wrong with it. And I'm like, no, nothing's wrong with them. Something's wrong with their parent, because that shouldn't happen. Right. But yeah, I just think that kids need to have a healthy fear of us. Healthy boundaries. That's right, Marlon. Absolutely.
Somebody from that gentle parenting, that was Franzetta Bradley. She put gentle parenting. And to bring the audience in something really quick, a question we have from Yolanda Russell. She said, what advice do you have for grandparents raising grandkids? Ooh. So the mom's out the picture, it's the grandparents doing the work for the grandkid.
Yeah, I think that if they got to act just like the parent. I think a lot of times what happens with grandkids, and we see it, there's leniency and this flexibility that happens, which is okay, I guess, if you got to give the kid back. But if you have to actually raise a child, now you have to raise that child as if they were
Mhm.
your own, with the same rules, the same tenacity, the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there really is this balance, right? I mean, I call it, I don't have a name for it, but it's kind of like, like bittersweet, sweet and what do you call it when nice nasty? Yeah,
Ah,
nice.
okay.
Um, because there are absolute days where it's just like it's smooth sailing and there's no challenges. But when
Hmm.
there are challenges, my kids know. Like I'm old school black mom. Like that is me. I'm old school black mom.
No, we need more of that nowadays. I was thinking you said that my wife looks at her mother sometimes with the difference with she's like, my mom raised me hard, and she gets around the grandbabies and is like, oh, and she's like, no, you need to be the
Exactly.
old version of you. Be the version I had, not the grandma version. But she also said, the best thing to come out of this, appreciate teachers, especially big city
Oh yeah.
teachers.
Oh, absolutely. Teachers, I think is so backwards, and it's nothing against NFL players or athletes or anything like that. I mean, they get their bodies torn up; they should be paid for it. But the people who are teaching and influencing, teachers spend more time with our children than we do sometimes,
Yep.
and they have to buy their own supplies for school. Like, what sense does that make? Like,
Yeah.
the people who are impacting the next generation and teachers are like they're the low end of the totem pole for respect, for money, for resources. That's not right for sure. So you're right, Ty. I completely agree with you. Completely
Yeah,
agree.
but there's a problem. She used to teach in Atlanta City Schools, so Atlanta has the kids
Oh,
that need the old school
APS.
black mom. Yes.
Yeah, APS. Yeah, I like old school black moms, but I put a little bit of a twist to it to say I think somebody said gentle parenting. I don't know who that was, but
Hmm.
yeah, because I kind of bring like this gentle parenting into the rule with the iron fist. You know what I mean? And it seems crazy, but you really can do both because my kid. I mean, I play football with my boys. You've probably seen my stuff. I mean, when I've been featured on the news and stuff, they play.
Yeah.
Where we play football and we play games and we hang out and like we have like I'm the fun mom
Hmm.
until you mess up.
Yeah, everything's good until something's not good.
Yeah,
That's why
everything.
Marlon put on there. He put healthy boundaries, so he's understanding that. And then Dimitri added to that saying teachers are the real influencers. Yes, it's not
Yeah,
social media; it's the teachers.
yeah, teachers really they are. Yeah, they absolutely are. Yeah.
Well, since you've been such a phenom in business, I was thinking about how much of your parenting influences your business, or is it more of your business influences your parenting?
You know what? I think they're one and the same, right? My first business is a family business. And
Okay.
I think what happens with a lot of business owners, and especially like first time entrepreneurs, is, they try to segment these pieces of their life and they run pieces of their life differently. So they don't run the personal life like they run the business, and they don't run the business like they run the personal life. And the fact is the fundamentals are the same. You save in your personal life, you save in your professional life, in your business. You have a budget at home, you have a budget at work. You're CEO at home, you're CEO at work. You're raising leaders at home, you're raising leaders at work. The fundamentals are the same, the characters change, the people
Mm-hmm.
change, right? But the directives are all awesome, the exact same thing, right? And if people ran their houses like they ran their businesses, in the instance where they run great businesses, the houses would run great. And the same thing, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the fundamentals don't change. They really don't. And I was interviewed by Best Self magazine a couple weeks ago, and I told them, like we are the CEOs of our kids, right? We are the
Mm-hmm.
CEO of our homes, and great leaders develop great leaders. So it's our job to raise leaders in our children, just like we would position our employees to be leaders. We don't want people who work for us. We want people who work with us that maybe
Mm-hmm.
one day we'll work for. And it's the same thing, at home. And kids know that. Like kids know, they know exactly what if they've been trained accordingly. They know exactly what they should do, how they should act. what they should expect and what's expected
Mm-hmm.
of them, right? Just like employees, when they're trained right, they know exactly how to act, when to act, what the expectations are, all of that stuff.
Yeah. And as you say that, the word expectation seems to be a common theme in leadership that's often not taught. I think about with me leading the team of agents I help mentor, that expectations is a big thing. If you don't have expectations clear in anything, it creates friction and bad feelings. So it sounds like with your kids, you set the stage for these are the expectations when I'm at work. These are the expectations when I'm cooking. These are the expectations when we go to the store. You set that clearly in the beginning, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. The expectations are set. And you know what, too? Like, I believe in grace. And this is the gentle parenting that I talk about. Like, every time my kids do something wrong, they don't get in trouble every single time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I use God as an example. I know like everybody doesn't believe in that, but whatever your, hiding or guiding power is, there's always this element of grace. And so sometimes, my kids do stuff and I said, listen, we make mistakes. God has grace on us. I'm going to extend that grace to you, right? I'm not going to extend it every time,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to give you a pass on this, or if they've been doing like, somebody gets in trouble for something and then for 2 weeks they do a great job and then they slip up. I'm not going to knock them over the head for it. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I recognize that you have been doing a great job and I love it. And so I'm going to extend you grace because I know you're trying and you're giving it your best, right? So it's not just always like hammer, 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 because I don't think that works either. But there's a
Yeah.
healthy mix of, letting things slide, but expectations, Derek, are key. Daryl, are key, right? Like expectations are a huge thing, and they know what the expectations are.
Yeah. I agree. That's a big part of that. That's why Marlon added in there. Great leaders develop great leaders. My 12-year-old son and I are on the course and have a goal of reading 50 books together this year. We're having a ball. He was initially intimidated. Now he's devouring books.
That's
There you go.
beautiful.
Lead by example.
That's intentional parenting, and that teaches so many things.
Mm-hmm.
That teaches so many things. His son is going to get so much out of even just being able to spend time and with his dad and read like that's intentional parenting, Marlon. That's great.
And there's a conference you have called the Moms All In Conference where you're kind of helping mom entrepreneurs with this balance, which there's always this myth of the work-life balance, which is really not even a thing. It's more of a harmony kind of situation. So do you see it? So like, do you see an increase in that lately, that women are kind of struggling to kind of balance things out or understand the idea of balance with the parenting and as well as running a business?
Yes, I do. And it's more so now, of course, because people are running these businesses at home while their
Mm-hmm.
kids are at home with them. And it's a culture shock. Now, to be fair and full transparency, I didn't have as hard of a time because I've been working out of my home, running, pretty substantial businesses for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a huge challenge to go from not having anyone at home to having, somebody here. Because, I'm usually here when they get home from school or pick up from the bus stop or whatever. But it's that's a huge change for women who were already challenged, with
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out how they find themselves in this process of building a business and building a family and doing all these things. That was already a challenge. So then when you throw in COVID and now
Yeah.
the kids are back at home. So like I didn't have any time for myself anyway. Right? And now I've got to figure out how to school these kids and still get my work done and cook dinner and so that's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot for people. And I get that completely.
So do you find yourself mostly with, because I feel for my wife all the time that she's dealing with her, not dealing with, but she's raising our 1 month old or
But you meant
3-year-old.
it right. You meant dealing with.
Well, hey, as a father, sometimes the frustration level is not as easy with me. Like I could deal with the older kids probably more than the younger, just because I deal with adults all day. So for me, that level is like higher. Like, okay, if you can speak to me and formulate an idea, I can deal with you longer then you're screaming at me for no reason. So would you say the biggest issue you're dealing with kind of helping people is understanding their time usage? Because that's where I feel the stress is I have so many things I have to get done. What's the priority? Is that kind of a big part of your coaching with the moms as well as the business owners?
You know what? Time is always a thing. And it's interesting you asked this. I was dealing with my director of operations yesterday, and we were working on this event. And again, my job is to make leaders out of my people with whom I work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a situation, and it was basically around time management. And listen, I'm not the most effective time management person, but what I can do is get a lot of stuff done in a very short amount of time. Like I've mastered, and it's to the point to where my employees will be talking to me at like 3:54, and they'll be like, you got to do this at 4:00. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, I'm going to get this. And they're like, wait a minute. What? Wait, how's that going? Like, you got like 6 minutes, Michelle. Is that gonna? And I'm like, trust me. And I get it done, and I'm right on video at 4:00. And they're like, what? How did she do that? People, it's not about time management. It's just that people don't always think outside the box for how to get things done efficiently. That's the deal, right? And so it's being intentional. Again, this word keeps popping up. It's being intentional about how do you make the most use out of your time, because there are people who are very organized, right? From 8 to 9 do this, 9 to 10 they do this, 10 to, and at 5:00 they still haven't gotten anything done.
Well, yeah, that when I think about that in the leadership spot, that's being efficient, not effective. Because I mean, I have to think about there's a billion things I can be doing all the time, even at home and at work. But like, what's the most effective use of my time? I have to keep reminding myself, because I want to fix this sales funnel or work on this copy for this or work on this post, but is that really effective right now? And usually the answer is no. So that's something I got to import on the agents I work with. Like, hey, are you being efficient or effective? And to be effective with the audience real quick, Marcello said hi. So Marcello's out here in ATO representing. Hey, Cello, thanks for representing the comments. And then we had, this is coming from Francetta Bradley. She thought about our discipline. She said, I tie consequences to actions. I want my son to understand his actions create the outcome. Yeah, that's great. That's really good. Yeah, because that's what real life is. I got to remind my son, he's about to be 13. I'm like, in 5 years, you're an adult. And I'm you're on your own at that point. Because my dad gave me the speech, if you don't get a scholarship, you're not going and you're out of here. And I got that, and that might not have been the best speech, but I got a scholarship. Like, he reminded me from when I was like 12 or something, like, hey, we ain't paying for college for you. You better get a scholarship. You're on your own after that. It's like, oh. Yeah. But I have to remind my son that, like, in 5 years, you're an adult. You better recognize that that's not a long period of time. So for the people that have older kids that are kind of going through this transition with, the workforce is different, probably because of COVID, and they're dealing with this as an adult, teaching their kid, trying to figure out their work life. What's the tip you have for the parents kind of trying to raise significant kids right now that are in like high school or middle school? Yeah. So always buy my book is the first tip I would give them. Go for it. No. No, I'm joking. I mean, I'm not, but I kind of am. No. So here's the thing. It's never too late. And even if you have kids that are like 14, 15, 16, it's never too late to put somebody on the path to greatness ever. Right. I mean, there's things that I think about, even, my oldest son is 22 now. And when he came back home to live because the schools and the dorms and everything were closed with COVID, I saw a couple of things in him, and he's fantastic. Let me just say that. I saw a couple of things with him, and I was like, man, what if I could have done this differently? And so I literally, I changed it up immediately. I'm like, I'm going to change my approach with him with this. I'm going to change my approach with him with that. And I saw the difference in him. So I think, to answer your question, depending on what the challenge is, you can adjust to the challenge, right? If, sometimes you got to reset the rule, you said that earlier, establishing expectations. If you can, your kids are headed down a certain path, they're in your house. That means you still have the ability to control them. And that means you get to take a chance and go back
and set expectations that maybe were set before and then just kind of have gotten lax, or set rules that were never set before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's an opportunity, especially at that like 14, 15-year-old age, especially
Yeah.
with boys, that you have to remind them, this is my house and I don't like what I see here. So here's what we're about to do. Here's what's about to happen. Like, you like to eat every day, right? You like those Kyries or Jordans or whatever you're wearing, right? Like, you like all these things. Here's how we make that continue to happen for you. And I love what the person said earlier, tying consequences to actions. It's never too
Mm-hmm.
late to set somebody on the path to greatness, especially our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is
And
that
as no, that is answering, and something I want to kind of touch on too. In the Black community, we often have special needs children in the Black community because of whatever issue. It could be something dietary from the past. It could be mom or dad has something in the system. There's always the challenge of that in the Black community. That's probably more intense than other communities. Have you seen like something for those people that are dealing with those situations that say, hey, I have damaged goods, quote unquote. What is it I can do because it doesn't stick? Because sometimes there's these issues where my wife taught in Atlanta public schools. A lot of the kids were, they had somebody got shot in front of them. They had the mom used drugs in the system, and now the kid's kind of behind. What are some tips you give the parents? Because I know the kid can't be changed in a day, but for the parent dealing with that, what are some things you found to help you kind of ground yourself and keep you sane if that's the situation you have to deal with?
Well, let me just say, of course, I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm not a physician. I'm not a doctor. I don't, so what I would be giving is just real life experience that I've seen help other people, right? Just in life. So I want to be very clear about that. But there's a couple things I know. With special needs kids, I would imagine it's completely different and the rules may totally change. I can't speak to that because I don't have special needs kids. But my heart goes out to parents and teachers, right? Without COVID. But what I do know is that parenting really takes a village. Like, building a family takes a village. And I mean, think about it, Gerald. We talk about this all the time. When we were being raised, like people down the street would call my mom and tell on me. And my mom would be like, I saw you at such and such. And I'm like, how did you know that? Who? Miss Marie called me, and so I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like, we need this village of parenting, especially now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Parents may have to go back to work, and kids may not be able to go back to school, right?
Yeah.
So we need this village of parenting, and I tell moms especially, but dads too, ask for help. Like, the strongest person in the world is the one that can admit they're hurting and they need help. That is the biggest indicator of strength is someone that's not afraid to say, I'm weak right now. I need some help. And for some reason, we have this stigma that like we can't ask for help, or it's a shame walk. Or do you want to have it all, Daryl? Would you love to have it all?
Well, if all means all the stuff I want, yes, but not everything.
Okay. But you'd love to have it all if you could. One of the ways that all the things that you'd want, one of the ways that we can make that happen is by asking for help. One of the things that we can get tons of stuff done is by asking for help. One of the ways that we can do more for our kids is by asking for help. And the other thing too, I think, is counseling is a thing. I mean, I think kids need proactive counseling. I've taken my children to counseling, like, even if nothing's wrong, it's just like, hey, let's just go talk. Maybe you got something you want to talk about that you don't want to talk to us about. I think, our brain is our most significant muscle, yet we only call on it when it shows that there are problems.
Right.
Our body, which is second to our brain in terms of strength, we put first. So we get preventative health exams, we get physicals, we do all this preventative maintenance for our bodies, but we don't do any preventative maintenance for the thing that actually runs our bodies. Our mind runs our flesh. Our mind and our flesh. So why wouldn't we put as much or more intention on preventative maintenance, and the strongest muscle in our body? Like,
Yeah, I'll blame my programming for that, because I mean, you and I both know in the Black community as a kid, it was the crazy house, or you're special, or he needs the pills or something. It was always kind of made a negative thing in the Black community, and even in movies they did that too. But I think you're right. We have to recognize the reality of just talking it out. Even just talking, that's for me was kind of my entry point. Just talking, just getting stuff out here and there and just talk about it. That alone, I think, is helpful versus just bottling it up and keeping it inside all day. And I think kids nowadays, that's important because they are dealing with a different world. You and I don't have to think about, we did school on the computer all day and didn't see kids. I see my daughter at the park sometimes and she's like, oh, kids. And we have to kind of be like, well, wait, you can play a little bit, but not like, you have to walk that line of like, well, they're not wearing masks and you are, and you don't know where they've been, so don't really go too close to them. But that's a different thing I never had to deal with. So the book is phenomenal, and as you've been talking about with a lot of people, is there a certain person you think definitely needs to read it, or does any parent?
I mean, come on, Daryl. I'm selling books here. Everybody needs to read the book. Okay? Like, seriously, is that really a question you want to ask me? I think so. For sure, the parent that, first of all, I think pre-parents should read it. I think the sooner people can get to this information, the better, like before they have kids, right? It's kind of like losing all the weight you can and being as small as possible before you get pregnant.
That's a good idea.
It's the same thing, right? Because then once you have the kids, you'll have the information to start doing things with it. So I think anybody who's pregnant or you're planning on being pregnant absolutely should get the book. And then certainly parents who are having, I don't want to say challenges, but really are struggling in terms of how they make everything work, especially in COVID, right? Because let's just be very frank and honest here for a second, right? People were struggling before COVID.
Right.
People were struggling with parenting before COVID, right? People were struggling with running a business before COVID. People were already struggling. COVID just like
spotlight.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if you were already having challenges, and I don't mean challenges in parenting, but just challenges in like wanting to, your kids don't listen as often as you like, right? You can't get kids to be as compliant, right? Kids who are struggling in certain areas, math, science, like I give tips for how you can kind of nip some of that stuff in the bud really quickly. So I think, people who kind of fall under those umbrellas for sure.
And see, I know you're a consummate salesperson and business person, so I thought that question would be helpful to target your audience. And we had Stacy jumping on here on YouTube said, mental wellness is health. We must remove the stigma. Yes.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
100% true. Just keep it real about it.
Daryl, did you know I was in a play a couple of years ago called Dignity? And it was about removing the stigma of mental health in Black women. And it was about a group, probably 10 or 11 Black women who were actually, they all had mental health issues, but like none of them really wanted to talk about it. So I played a woman who was successful, but she was an alcoholic and she had multiple personalities and she was schizophrenic. That was my character. So it wasn't too far. I moved right into that character.
Close to reality, right?
Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
Well, good. Well, this is helpful. That's something else that Carmen added in here. Actually put about time management. That's real. Having a ton of time means nothing without intention. Yes, I agree with that 1,000,000% because I have to watch my kids with this online school thing. They'll just have time. Like we're on a break right now. Cobb County has another break. If you live in Cobb County, they have a break every month. There's a break. But I'm like, you have time, do something with it. Don't just sit there and like surf CNN Kids and like actually do something. So people need to make sure they get the book, and also for your business. So you're spotlighting small businesses in your magazine and online, and you have the TV show. You didn't even talk about the show. I just thought about that. Wait a minute. We had to talk about your show.
I mean,
You have several.
no, I don't. I just
Come
have
on, talk about. That's several in my book. Some people have zero. So go
well,
and talk about your shows real quick on TV and the internet.
fair enough, fair enough. So one of the ways, as I mentioned earlier, that we help businesses advertise affordably is we create our own content. So you mentioned the magazine, we have billboards, but we also have two shows. One is called the According to Michelle Show, and it's been airing on the AIB network here in Atlanta. It's on Comcast channel 295 and AT&T channel 6. And so you can actually search for that show on either one of those platforms and it'll come up. We're on hiatus right now. We're in production for season 3. So that should be airing soon. But people can advertise on the show. And then we have access to about 4 million viewers on Comcast and AT&T. But then we upload the shows to YouTube. Once we do that, we really see a takeoff. I have several shows that have 1 million plus views. So it's great advertising. But of course, I am the host of the According to Michelle Show, and I interview national influencers, celebrities, athletes, business owners, civil servants, whomever. And most of them live here in Atlanta, but a lot of them don't. We have people fly in pretty regularly to be on the show. So you can see, you can search According to Michelle on YouTube. And then we also have the According to Michelle internet radio show, which is on mixxx106radio.com. That airs every Wednesday at 2 p.m. And it's the same thing. We interview influencers, but most of the time now, because of COVID, we're doing platforms like this with StreamYard and such. And so I get about 240,000 people on average listen to that show every week. And it's great. We highlight businesses. We invite people to come on, experts in the field, a little bit of everybody. But the show is actually really fun. It's kind of like a different side of me. I mean, I guess I'm always kind of crazy and the same, but we like wow out on that show. Even we could be talking about the most serious of topics, but we always have fun on the According to Michelle radio show with DC and me, my co-host. So, yeah,
you guys have fun. You've had several of the people from Professionally Black chiming in on the show, calling
that's
in.
Right. Pierre
acting the fool.
was on just a couple weeks ago. Pierre was on.
Yeah, so I appreciate you making the Professionally Black, community spread and kind of get more, national with the sense of that. And you're part of that panel too.
Yes, because of you, Daryl, and I've got to give you your flowers while you're here. Actually, I can give you roses. Here. Roses for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But thank you for being on the show this last week too. Appreciate you jumping on there.
Absolutely. But kudos to you. I mean, what a great platform to pull people in. It's positive and endearing and exciting and real. And kudos to you for having vision and foresight on that. It's a fantastic platform. I love being a part of it. And, we're glad you do it. And somebody called me today. I got a cold call from a woman that was trying to sell me Aflac insurance. You know what I told her? You want to guess what I told her?
What?
I was like, I've already got an Aflac guy.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Hey, awareness is the first part of marketing, so I'm glad people are aware of me. And speaking of which, we do another Professionally Black next Wednesday, different panel. We did 2 this month for Black History Month. So, folks, if you're in the comments on YouTube and LinkedIn, and if you're watching this on somebody else, come check it out next Wednesday at noon. Different panel, but it's about talking about the gift of Blackness, how we see it, and how the world sees it. Michelle, I could talk to you all day. We got to let you get back to your boys, and I got to get back to my 3 girls and 1 boy. So we got a little opposite there.
We both got 4 kids, and congrats again on the baby.
Thank you. Yeah, she's doing well. She's I would talk about her sitting her neck up soon. So she sat up pretty quickly with her, the no weak neck babies is what I say around here a lot. But
yes.
Thank you, folks. Please, if you need someone that needs to watch this, tag them on the replay. This will be on YouTube for replay as well. And then just be safe. COVID-19 is still a thing. So please wear a mask, socially or physically distance, I'll say. Physically distance, but be social. Be aware on these platforms. Talk to people. Connect with people, because that's what it's here for. And we will catch you guys next time on Business with Benefits.
Thank you for having me, Daryl. Bye.
Thank you.